Welcome to Whistleblowers in partnership with Wix Trade Pro. Coming up.
The gap between Brentford and Tottenham is like going from a puddle to the ocean. There's no excuse for that. You cannot, as a football club, question referees and take it from them.
Our first ever guest, James Nelson-Joyce. What do you think of the Trent Alexander-Arnold situation?
Real Madrid, they're just little snakes, aren't they? Like, they're a ratty club.
Blow the whistle, we'll make a donation to UNICEF for you.
I'll take the fucking whistle off the ref and blow it right in the camera.
Fantastic.
Hello and welcome to Whistleblowers. I'm Gordon Smart, the YTS S-form Des Lynham, and I'm joined as ever by the self-proclaimed least arrogant referee in the world and old school football journalist turned podcaster. We've got Ian Ladyman and Mark Clattenburg. Hello, boys.
How are we?
Very well, very well. Mark, you look like you might have just stepped off the golf course or maybe a TK Maxx advert.
Yeah, probably the latter. I did try and play golf this week.
Did you? How'd you get on?
Unsuccessful.
How'd you score?
The greens were terrible.
Where were you playing?
I was playing in a golf course in just outside of Athens.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, so I had a little bit of business to do, and I decided I'll go and play some golf. And I've never seen me putts go in 3 different directions on a green.
Ian, do you get the feeling that might be the answer every time we get together? I've just been playing a little bit of golf.
Just drop it in.
Anyone who ever says, I've just played on a terrible golf course, what they actually mean is, just had a terrible round.
No, when the ball was in the air, it was all right.
Yeah.
But the wind blew it a few times, but it was all right in general.
What did you score, or was it a Texas Scramble?
No, we just played as a group.
Oh,
But one successful thing was I still had the same ball at the end of the round.
Yeah.
And I think that's a result.
Exactly. Right, boys, you might have noticed that after last week's podcast, we've had a slight development. You were moaning there was nowhere to put your cup of tea, your breakfast tea. So Wix have very kindly sent us something. They've also sent me a letter here, which you can see is addressed to the podcast that I'm going to open in the second episode. So we'll see if we're going to finally get somewhere to put your cup of tea, Mark Clattenburg's Sex on the Beach cocktail, his favourite, and my half pint of tennis lager.
Seems to be a pair of burglar's gloves.
Burglar's gloves.
On that bit of kit.
I think you'll be wearing them like O.J. Simpson at some point.
That's what that's all about.
And a little reminder as well, you can get in touch with us on social media. On Instagram, we are Whistleblowers Pod. TikTok, Whistleblowers Podcast. Twitter, it's Blowers Pod. So please get in touch with us. As always, a lot to catch up on since we last saw each other. On my day job at BBC 5 Live, I was speaking to John Murray, who said the England-Andorra game is probably the worst game of football he commentated on this season. How was it for you, Ian Ladyman?
Yes, I was there in the empty Espanyol Stadium on the outskirts of Barcelona. I was with Big John before the game. Didn't see him afterwards. You know what? He's probably got a point there. I mean, it was as non-competitive as you can imagine, given that I think Andorra didn't have a touch in the England penalty box until the second half. Had one shot on goal all game. However, that doesn't really play to the fact that England were utterly useless, utterly devoid of ideas, utterly devoid of energy. The manager, Thomas Tuchel, even decided afterwards to make a point about them having the wrong attitude, which was a bit of a mic drop moment from him. And then they went on to play Senegal at home at the City Ground in Nottingham last night. I was at that game Tuesday night, different type of game, and England found a way to be bad in completely new set of ways against a team that beat them 3-1.
Mark, just on refereeing those games, do you notice a difference in the sort of, the competitive nature of those matches?
Friendlies were always a disaster.
Yeah.
Because, especially these ones in June, because players want to get away.
Yeah.
They finished
thinking
a
about the
hard
holidays,
season now. There's more games I'm saying more games than ever, but it's more competitive now.
Yeah.
Champions League are running longer. You've got the qualification games, but these ones in June, players want to be away. They want to get away.
But from that point of view, I think the choice of Senegal was I don't think Thomas Tuchel will be looking at it now like it was a good choice because they embarrassed England. But I think it was because in beating England, they've become the first African team ever to do so. They were a very motivated group of players, and indeed the supporters they had with them. And as I said to you before we started, Mark, I think you in the loo, Gordon, so I'm going to tell you, in the press room, in the media room at the City Ground, after the game on Tuesday night, there was the travelling party of Senegal journalists, which I think only numbered 4, was sitting there and started singing "It's Not Coming Home."
Yes, I've got a new second team.
And we're all sitting there frantically writing our match reports, trying not to rise to the bait.
But the choice of Senegal is important, even though it's a friendly, because they're going into a World Cup qualification, and what you don't want to be doing is playing just European sides. When you go to the World Cup, you've got to play Africans, you've got to play South Americans. So the preparation is right. It's just the timing of timing of it. When we talk about, meaningless friendlies, are they that important? We touched on it before. England's qualification in the World Cup are playing teams from lesser nations which aren't competitive. England are going into a World Cup with non-competitive matches.
So where do you stand on this, Ian? Because this is a common thing from England fans, isn't it? What's the point in this?
People often say this. People were saying it on my social media this morning. Oh, why are we playing these games? Well, we're playing these games because one of them was a qualifier. I know we're all presuming in that rather arrogant English way that we're already at the World Cup. Got to qualify for the World Cup. Got to play the games. Okay, when do you play them? Play them in the middle of the season. Supporters moan about the interruption to the Premier League cycle. Club managers moan about it. Play at the end of the season. People say, "Oh, these players should be having a rest." You've got to play these games somewhere. And the problem now, and this is a problem that's been caused by UEFA and FIFA. So UEFA have expanded the European Championships, I think, to 32 teams off the top of my head. Euro 96, by the way, which we talk about so fondly, was 16 teams, doubled in size in that time. This World Cup next summer, 48 teams, up from 32. So the more teams that these governing bodies want to get into the finals, because it means they can show more on TV games, more money, great sponsorship, blah, 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 blah. That means that the more teams coming through qualifying, and it means, therefore, the standard of qualifying groups is lower all the time because there's so many nations now. Ideally, if you want qualifying to be competitive and attractive to the punters, you need to have introduced pre-qualifying like they have for the Champions League. So a team like Andorra, ranked 173rd in the world, would have to qualify by playing teams of a similar standing, such as maybe Gibraltar, to get into qualifying. But FIFA don't want that. FIFA want as many teams playing as possible. So we're not going to play France in qualifying, or Belgium in qualifying, or Portugal. We're not even going to play Poland in qualifying. This is what we get.
The way they play is boring. It's like a chore, though, isn't it? That's the thing.
Yeah, but that's got to be attitude. If you look at Senegal last night, but you look in that game, Senegal players were celebrating like they'd won the finals.
Yeah,
they were dancing, singing, and everything else about a win in a friendly match. What did that mean to Senegal? Huge. England haven't got that mentality.
Yeah,
you win, they get off the pitch, they do their interviews and move on to the next game. These smaller teams certainly show the excitement. I've refereed African teams before, and I love the atmosphere. I love the vibe, even though they bring everything to football. We switch off because it's England national team.
So we spoke to Thomas Tuchel after the game on Tuesday night, and he alluded to that. He said that after the game, he'd heard the Senegal players singing and dancing in the next door dressing room at the City ground, and he's saying, why do our players not approach international football in that way? When we win a game, we think, okay, job done, won a game, put the tracksuit on, go home.
But you spoke to Saka as well, right? Did you speak to Saka about that?
Yeah, we spoke to Saka at St George's Park on Monday, and Saka was good company actually. But he was saying to us, it's not about entertaining; it's about winning. Now he's got a point because we stank the place out in Germany last summer, and we almost won the damn thing, and nobody would have been complaining about the football had we brought the trophy home. So I know what Bukayo is saying, but equally the point that Tuchel is trying to make is you've got to find a way. It's not that these players don't care. People say to me the England players don't care. That's bollocks. They care. Of course they care. They don't have to play for the country. They care. Okay, but equally they wear that expectation very heavily. Talk about the weight of the shirt. The shirt weighing you down, playing poorly. Some of that exists, not because they don't want it or they want to enjoy it, but they're scared of losing, they're scared of the criticism, and they know that even sometimes when they win, like they did at the weekend against Andorra, people like me will still criticise them. Supporters will still criticise them. So the balance is wrong. Yes. The balance at that level of the game in our country is wrong.
It's interesting for me because the Scottish situation is entirely different, where it feels like qualification means everything. The fans turn up and love it. The atmosphere is great, but then we get pumped by Iceland 3-1. And Andy Robertson's post-match interview, he was embarrassed. He couldn't wait to get away. And it just doesn't make sense to me. And I always hate criticising Scotland managers in particular, but Stevie Clarke has got he's pretty blessed in terms of the squad he has to choose from, I think. Particularly with younger players coming through, like Josh Doig, who's just been promoted to Serie A, 2 players who've just won the Scudetto, Shea Adams, who's had a great season at Torino. But losing 3-1 at home to Iceland is another painful moment.
That's a really, really bad result. Without digging too deep into this, what I will say to you is that if Scotland, you're going to hate me saying this, but I'm going to say it anyway, if Scotland want to look at their squad and think, right, we've got a squad that we think can actually be progressive at a summer tournament, for example. Yeah. I'm sorry, mate. You've got to have players in the Premier League. Serie A, look, people come at me for this, okay? It's great that players, the ones you just mentioned, have got the balls and the courage to go to Serie A and play and do well and win. But Serie A these days is a couple of notches below the Premier League.
McTominay is 10th in the Ballon d'Or, wasn't he? In the nominations.
Mate, Scott Tominay wasn't good enough for Manchester United. And again, people won't want me to say that. Okay, he's good enough for the Manchester United team that played this season. He's not good enough for what Man United should be. Serie A is not what it was. Yeah. Okay, look, Romelu Lukaku failed at Manchester United, failed at Chelsea.
Inter were in the Champions League final, though. There was no English. Inter were in the Champions League final.
When Liverpool reached the final, Liverpool won the Champions League in 2005. They finished behind Everton, and they were fifth. I think they were something like 35, 40 points behind Chelsea. It can happen. They had Jimmy Traore in the team, okay? It can happen. Teams can get to the Champions League final without it being a reflection of the league.
Scotland 1 win in their last 9 home matches, booed off, and then winning against Liechtenstein. That doesn't really mean much at all.
But question for you then, Gordon.
Yeah.
If you're so negative about Clarke, who would you replace him with?
It's a great question.
I thought Moyes was the natural one, but I didn't expect Moyes to go from West Ham.
I didn't think he'd go Everton. Yeah, I still think Moyes will manage Scotland after.
Yeah, because it's got to be a Scottish person, isn't it?
It didn't work with Bertie Vogts. Oh, I'd definitely be open to a good foreign manager. Yeah, because I think it would be quite an attractive job for a foreign manager. I wonder what happened with Roberto Martinez after the Portugal experience. Because he's got a Scottish wife. He's lived in Scotland most of his life. Yeah, I think that would be quite an interesting option further down the line.
Because going back to the point I made earlier, because qualification is wide open now because there's so many teams at the summer tournaments, there's always a route there for Scotland now. There's a route for Scotland to get into a 48-team summer tournament. Of course there is.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the frustration for me in Germany last summer, is that it's one of the best experiences of my life, and the football killed it. Like, probably 3 minutes into that Germany game.
Yeah, but that was a tough. That was
horrible.
Yeah,
tough
opening game of the tournament as well isn't always the best.
But I don't think we'll ever have a better chance to progress through the group stages than we had there.
But you've got. But I'm not kicking you, mate, because I would like them to be a strong Scottish team, just like to be a strong Welsh team, for example. But it's a limited squad, mate. It's a very limited squad.
Yeah, beyond that starting 11.
It is.
Yeah, we need to.
And you haven't got a goal scorer.
Ben Doak is the one that could be the answer there, I think.
England haven't got a goal scorer apart from the bloke who plays every time. Yeah. But Scotland haven't got a goal scorer.
Apart from the record goal scorer, but we'll move on from that. Shall we have a little conversation about Nottingham Forest now? And I know it's a club close to your heart, Mr. Clattenburg. Once again, taking the dollar, eh?
Nice experience.
I mean, can you explain this to me, Ian? Because this feels to me like kind of golf club politics, where somebody on the committee is annoyed at somebody else on the committee, and they write a strongly worded letter to the president.
Speaking from experience.
Yes. Can you see I've been on the receiving end? What is going on here, right, with Forest writing letters? Tell me this story.
So Crystal Palace won the FA Cup, as we know, which was marvellous. One of the highlights of the season. And so they qualified, or should have qualified. I think they've qualified for the Europa League. However, because one of their majority shareholder also has a majority stake in Lyon in France, there's an issue there. There's supposed conflict of interest,
and there is an investigation into that.
Yeah, UEFA don't like dual ownership. They don't like clubs who are owned or significantly owned by the same people playing in the same competition. Man United have had it, for example, with Nice and Jim Ratcliffe, and Chelsea have had it with Strasbourg, and Manchester City have had it with Girona. Okay, now those clubs have found a way around it, and we'll maybe get into that in a minute. Crystal Palace have failed to get ahead of the game on this. It's almost as if they didn't see this problem coming, so they haven't managed to kind of get the ducks in a row, move a few people there, to try and split the clubs a little bit, and they've been caught in UEFA's net. So they've had to go to Neon to speak to UEFA to say, look, it's not like this. Obviously, I know that John Textor has a significant role here, but he hasn't got a significant role here. So I think we can play in the same competition, Lyon having also qualified. And that's, as we stand where we are, apart from the fact that Nottingham Forest have decided to get involved. Forest, of course, are due to play in the Europa Conference League next season if Palace were to get thrown out of European competition, it's theoretically possible that Forest will get promoted to the Europa League, more attractive competition, more lucrative competition. So Forest have written to UEFA just to ask exactly where they are.
Clarification.
Just to ask exactly where they are with their investigation.
Yeah, but if you go back, just add on that, Ian. March the 1st is the deadline. So all clubs know, if they've got dual ownership, them owners know that they have a potential issue. So the clubs, Chelsea, Manchester United, Nottingham Forest, put all of their paperwork in place where Mr. Marinakis resigned as the owner of Nottingham Forest, put the shares into, was it a charity?
It's a blind trust.
Blind trust.
Which is what United did with
Yeah.
Nice.
So that's a way around UEFA's rules.
I mean, it's a load of old bollocks, but that is the way around it.
Yeah, of course.
Clever
So
accountants.
UEFA allow it.
It's nonsense.
UEFA allow it.
Yeah.
So
It's within
it
the
was,
rules.
it was the 1st of March. Crystal Palace didn't see that, therefore didn't probably think that they were going to win the FA Cup. And now it's only a problem after the deadline. For me, I don't see a problem with dual ownership. We're now moving into a modern day where owners own a lot of football clubs. Are we saying that Mr. Marinakis runs Olympiacos, he runs Rio Avenue, he runs Nottingham Forest, he's got a board. That club is independently ran.
Are you still on the payroll, by the way, Martin? Anyway,
No. That's another subject. But they're actually ran as a football club. Yes, he's got an interest in the results, but the club are ran financially and everything else with the owner over the top. I haven't got a problem. If you look at UEFA's rules, for example, we had last season, which was a shock to many people, that you could have a player loaned to another club and play against each other. We saw that with Asensio, Aston Villa against Paris Saint-Germain. So what you're saying, that player wouldn't go and try and score? Are we trying to create something here? For me, it's absolutely bollocks.
You're talking like a bloke who expects consistency and logic from an organisation.
Yeah, but
bring it back to...
Yeah, but I think we're looking at it too deep. Yeah. I think at the end of the day, if Crystal Palace should have the right, they've won the FA Cup, they should play in the Europa League against Lyon. Integrity, both teams will want to win, and that's how it should be.
That's what it brings it back to Forest, doesn't it? Because I always see Forest as a proud, honourable club with deep tradition. This seems to me a little bit like whining, petty, sort of slightly. I don't know. Do you not think it's just?
I think you're looking at Forest in a bad light? Is it because what Nottingham Forest have done over the last 2-3 years? Yeah, and we're now looking at it another way to try and hit them. I think Nottingham Forest want clarification because it impacts on your signings. And not, if you look at Nottingham Forest traditionally, they've always done their transfers early in the windows. They want their players, they want their squad ready for next season. Yeah. That has a huge impact as a club from Conference League to Europa League.
I don't think there's a huge difference between planning for a season in the Conference League and planning for a season in the Europa League.
But you have because you have now because you've got financial fair play. Yeah. If you're getting money, there's a huge difference between Champions League, Europa League, and Conference League.
No, but there won't be between Europa League and Conference League.
There is. There's a substantial amount of difference, and that creates how they plan. And I think all they want is the decision made. If it's the decision that Crystal Palace playing in the Europa League, everybody can move on.
It's not just academic anyway, because Forest bottled it. I really like Forest, but it was in their own hands, wasn't it?
Season.
Champions League qualification.
They had a brilliant season. Tell me about. I know a little bit about the way Marinakis runs a football club at Forest, but I'm more interested, Mark, in you talking about your experiences of the guy, because he is a remarkable chap. And of course, you were there as a referee consultant for a while. Just tell me a little bit about him and how he runs that football club.
I wasn't a referee consultant. Everybody said I was a referee consultant.
What were you?
Advisor to the board.
Advisor to the board.
Okay.
What, on fashion?
Yeah.
what were you advising them on if it wasn't refereeing issues?
I wasn't just refereeing issues. It was also because
catering.
I knew what a good steak was. Now,
Guinness, a good plate of Guinness.
The thing was, I knew Greek football. Yeah. I know, for example, when I was head of refereeing in Greece, how Greeks react to certain situations. And I also understood the English game, being a referee in the English Premier League for 13 years. So there was a mixture of both that I could understand him as a person, and I could also give him advices on what's the English culture, because what we see in Greece is normal for an owner to come on the football pitch at the end of the game is very, very normal but it's not normal in England.
So how did that work for you? Did he ask for advice? Did he ask you questions? Or were
I
you
would,
there
I
to
would,
say,
if he, for example, asked us a question on the current manager,
Mhm.
and he asked us my opinion, of course I'm going to give him my
It's
opinion.
your fault that Steve Cooper got sacked.
It wasn't my fault. He lasted a lot longer than I think people would have allowed it, because Steve Cooper had a difficult job when he got into the Premier League with 28 players brought into the club. But the results, it's a result-driven sport, and if an owner who's invested a lot of money needs to stay in the Premier League, they need results. But we all see.
he was asking you about the manager.
Well,
What
there was
you thought?
times when what do you think of the results?
Yeah.
And because there was a panic about
Yeah.
Nottingham Forest being relegated. And I think Steve Cooper, what he achieved at Nottingham Forest from the Championship was just
Great
incredible.
job, yeah.
Can I
It was
ask
incredible.
you a very straight question? A very straight question. The furore over the tweet, and I will just provide some context for people who will have forgotten. So, I have to remind myself now. So Luton are playing at Everton.
No.
Yeah. Am I wrong already?
No, so Stuart
No,
Atwell.
Forest are playing at Everton.
Stuart Atwell is a Luton Town fan who was VAR on such a crucial match.
The Forest are
between
at Everton. There's a couple of contentious penalty decisions.
Three.
The VAR official is known to be a Luton supporter.
Yes,
So-
who
I've
was
got the tweet actually.
Sorry, go on.
Yeah, I've got the tweet here.
This is why you're the host. of
Yeah,
that,
no
not-
problem. No. 3 extremely poor decisions, 3 penalties not given, which we simply cannot accept. We warned the PGMOL that the VAR is a Luton fan before the game, but they didn't change him. Our patience has been tested multiple times. So, yeah, Marinakis, is he commissioning those posts, do you think?
where they come from, certainly.
It must come from the top. Does it come
Comes from-
direct from him?
It would come from the chairman or
Right.
and the owner, and they have got a chairman at the club, and there'll be an agreement of how that tweet was put together. I saw it. That wasn't the tweet that was originally written, and in the end, the tweet went out. Do I agree with the tweet? No, I don't, because it's not what we're used to in England. But as a club, they were on the verge of another disappointing result created by decisions that were not consistent with level of refereeing performances, because there was a lot of decisions even before I came into Nottingham Forest. There was decisions that I was watching from afar thinking that decision isn't a good one.
Does he genuinely care for the club, do you think? Or does it just go too far sometimes?
Hugely. What he's doing in Nottingham, he wants to stay at the City Ground because he knows about the nostalgia. He knows about what the ground means to the fans. He doesn't want to move a brand new stadium where he could get more revenue outside of the city. He wants to do everything. The council don't allow it. So he's trying to find all of the ways to try and get Nottingham Forest. He promised the fans from day one they'll play in Europe. They are. Viv Anderson was going to selling his medals. So what did Mr. Marinakis do? Buy the medals back to give them back, so he didn't lose them within his family, which is an incredible gesture. He's not just what we always see as a Greek owner on the football pitch. He actually cares. He's built a netball team for the city. He's doing a lot for the city.
He did spit at a referee, didn't he?
Well,
How would you have felt
No,
about that?
I wasn't.
He spat on the floor. Let's be
Spat on the
honest.
floor.
He sat on the floor
in
and
the
the
vicinity
referee-
of a referee.
Yeah. The referee
But-
was walking past, so we can't comment if
But I need
that
to
was.
rewind you here, Mark, a little bit. I do need to rewind you here a little bit. I happen to know the identity of the person who wrote that tweet. It wasn't their words, but I know the person who physically did it. Not going to say who it
Me
was.
too, and it'll be the same person.
And then there may have been some pressure involved there. What I will say to you, mate, is that you can talk all you like about refereeing decisions that went against Forest and historic ones, etc. There's no excuse for that tweet. You cannot, as a football club, you can criticise the referee's decisions all you like. You cannot question the referee's integrity, mate. You absolutely
I love it when
cannot
the Ian
do that.
Ladyman
You
pointing finger comes out.
absolutely
Yeah.
cannot do that, whoever you are. If we go down that road, then we're dead, mate. We haven't got a game.
I
We
agree
haven't got a
100%.
game.
But everybody thought it was me that did
Yeah,
the
yeah.
tweet. But it was wrote in really good English, so that was
It
definitely
was
not
done
from me.
I should say there is a bit. This is not a political podcast, but there's something Trumpian about Forest, isn't there, in the way they behave? I mean, the fake news defence of the Nuno moment was quite interesting, wasn't it? The Leicester game.
Yeah,
Just fake news.
Well, the other thing you could say about that is that they got on the front foot with it very quickly. A lot of clubs would see that happen they only go on the field and confront the manager after a game and think, blimey, it's happened. What we're going to do is turn our phones off and just wait for this storm to pass. Forrest got on the front foot, to be fair,
because it was
and
speculation, wasn't it?
started to
People
try and
speculate.
explain it. What I will say about Maunakis is I was in the company of 2 or 3 of his closest advisors. When England played in Athens last winter, I was invited out for dinner with 3 of Maunakis' closest advisors who were involved with Olympiacos. And they took us to a lovely restaurant down by the port in Athens, and we sat there and closed the bloody restaurant for us.
McDonald's.
Love that, absolutely, Burger King. Lovely meal. But my point is that at one point, after a couple of hours, I got a bit bolder once I'd had a couple of glasses of wine. I just said to them, and they all call him Mr. Maunakis. I said, when Mr. Maunakis does something that you guys know is a big mistake, which one of you around this table tells him that it was a big mistake? And they just looked at me like as if they didn't understand the question and just said, Mr. Maunakis doesn't make mistakes.
Oh, right.
Seriously, that is the level of devotion that Maunakis has from the people in his orbit. And I think what you learn from that is essentially the way that that's the way he runs that football club. That's the way that he goes about things at Forest. And you speak to Forest fans, and I know quite a few. I used to live in Nottingham, and they will say, "Yeah, we know he's a bit crazy, but he's our
crazy guy.
Crazy.
But Leeds
And
about
we
that as
love
well.
him, and
Well,
He's
love him.
created that because of what he's done to the city.
Against the world.
You know, he has Olympiacos. Olympiacos won again the double. Last year they won the Conference League, first Greek team ever to win a European competition. So he's not just doing it in one country. He's actually, and he promised Nottingham Forest fans, 4 or 5 years ago, that they'll play in Europe, and everybody laughed. Went, no, you're crazy Greek. But actually, he's done everything he said he's done. So we can think he's negative.
To watch football there now,
It's
it's
a great ground,
incredible,
isn't it? Great
incredible
atmosphere.
story.
Well, we did solicit football fans and whistleblowers, listeners on social media for their thoughts on Forest, and some of the responses are great. Nottingham Forest continue to be one of the most unlikable football clubs around. This is from a Forest fan. First we bottled the FA Cup, then we bottled the Champions League, then we bottled Europa and are stuck in the worthless conference. Now we look tin pot and should let a proper club like Palace have the rightful place. Shame on us. This is a good one as well. How Netflix and Amazon haven't picked up Nottingham Forest to do a TV series amazes me. Something happens at least once a day, it would be a global hit. And the one last one here, the same Nottingham Forest that spunked a place in the Champions League because they couldn't beat an already relegated Leicester at home. End of argument. But, just to finish this, Mark, on that Netflix Amazon point, what was it like being inside the City ground?
I've actually mentioned it to him. You should do a
You should really?
documentary.
You advise them?
Yeah, I think it'll be...
Is that because you want to be on the telly more as well?
Oh, definitely not. But I think it'll be great to see inside him as a person, because I think people have judged him wrongly. So people can see what he actually does and sees how the football club is evolving from even just the last few years. I think it'll be fascinating. Also, a lot of it gets edited, surely, in the documentaries. But you'll see the passion. He's there every game, and he just wants Nottingham Forest to win. But going back to say that they bottled the Champions League, of course it did. But you look, the last 4 games, last 4 home games, they only took 1 point. That's where they lost
that's
the
right.
Champions
Guys,
League.
those comments astonished me. They had a brilliant season. I tipped
Amazing
them to go down. They had a brilliant season.
Yeah.
Fabulous season.
1 point out of the last 4 games, Mr. Ladyman.
Happens, mate. It happens.
They beat Man United twice, was it?
Okay.
Brilliant season.
Right, lads,
Liverpool.
let's move on, because there's something that feels slightly car crash-ish for me about the loveliest man in football, Thomas Frank, packing his suitcase and heading across London to Tottenham Hotspur from Brentford. Ian, is this the thing that could turn a lovely human being into a twisted, broken man in some kind of, Machiavellian play?
Look, we talked briefly last week, didn't we, about Graham Potter and the change in Graham Potter between Brighton and West
Potter
Ham.
effect.
Brighton and West Ham, which is something
Chelsea.
called Chelsea that happened to happen in the middle. Is it going to happen to Thomas Frank? Look, first of all, let's be clear. Thomas Frank is a lovely man. Okay, he's an engaging man. He's a real, what I call a real man. Spent a bit of time with him. He's nobody's fool. Okay,
Yep.
because you can't survive and thrive as a Premier League manager by being a nice guy. Nobody's fool. Okay, He knows what he's about. He knows exactly what he is. And I don't think he'll let Tottenham. Ruin him, because he looks at life in a broader way. I interviewed him last season, season before last, I think, and he spoke to me about how I said, "Are you going to go off and watch the European Championships?" He said, "No, of course I'm not." He said, "I'm going to go backpacking through Argentina or something with my wife." And he actually spoke to me then about how he thought he might have a limited time span as a top manager because he wants to do lots of other things with his life.
And he comes from a psychology background. I think,
Yeah.
so
Now Tottenham fans might listen to this and say, "Oh, great! So we're getting a manager who's not even sure that he wants to stick around that long." I think we're talking long term rather than short term.
And there's the start of the contagious apathy of Spurs, isn't it?
Yeah.
Before he's even in the door.
What I will say, so look, I think it ain't going to ruin him. I don't think he's a type. He's not going to go all Ange Postecoglou on us, okay? I don't think we're going to see him staring at, I don't think we're going to see the passive aggressive behaviour, the constant staring at the floor, etc., etc. I don't think we're going to see that. Will it change him? It might do. You never know in management how football will change you until you get to a really big club. You just don't know because it's so different. The gap between Brentford and Tottenham, it's like going, I don't know, it's like going from a puddle to the ocean. It really, really is. And you don't know whether he'll cope. What I think equally pertinent is whether his football will cope. Because it's one thing, right? I know they looked at Areola at Bournemouth as well, okay? It's one thing playing the way that Thomas Frank plays at Brentford, which is quite direct. The way that Areola plays at Bournemouth, which is largely without the ball. You can do that at Bournemouth and Brentford because they don't care if you're winning.
Yeah.
You're winning. Oh my God, we're Brentford. We've just beaten Man United. Don't care how we've done it. We're Bournemouth. We've just beaten Man City. Don't care how we've done it. Different to Tottenham. You got to get Tottenham. You got to play with the ball. You got to play with the ball, and you got to win, and you got to win with style. Blah 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 blah. That will be interesting. Whether his football makes the leap from Brentford to Tottenham. He will. Personality-wise, not sure about the football.
Well, let's look at the football record because it is actually incredibly impressive. Brentford have beaten every opponent they've faced in the Premier League at least once. Brentford have never ended a single Premier League match day in a position lower than 16th. That's a remarkable achievement. Brentford have the second lowest wage bill in the Premier League, but finish 10th this season, I think, ahead of Spurs, Man United, Fulham and Everton. And how about this? This is great as well. Brentford have conceded fewer Premier League goals than Spurs since their promotion, right, in 2021. So 224 goals, Spurs have conceded 229. So, with that evidence, it's quite a powerful record to take across London.
It is, but at Brentford, everything is overachievement, okay? In the eyes of the media, in the eyes of most of the supporters. Supporters do get quite bloody entitled quite quickly these days, but it's overachievement, right? Now, it's impossible to overachieve at Tottenham because everyone who goes to that fabulous stadium on the Seven Sisters Road thinks you should be a Champions League club every single year, even though there's 6 or 7 other clubs who might have something to say about that. So look at Ange Postecoglou. It's just won a European trophy. The board have seen that as underachievement. They've binned him. Okay, so that's the problem. Well, that's the challenge for Thomas Frank, is to go from an environment where every year you stay in the Premier League, you're pushing against the forces. Yeah. You go to Tottenham, totally different setup.
On the subject of lovely people like Thomas Frank, because he does have a lovely candour about him, very warm guy. Yeah. Who's the nicest person? Given that you spend most of your time fighting people in football, you Ladyman, who's the one that can cut through the ice of the Ladyman iceberg?
Player, and sticking with Tottenham actually, the nicest player in the Premier League is Heung-min Son by a mile.
Really?
He is such a lovely fella. I think I've interviewed him one-on-one on 2 occasions. There was a 4-year gap in between those interviews. He claimed to remember me from the first one. He wouldn't. He was just being real. Because he'll have done hundreds of interviews in that time. He was just being really... He is a lovely guy. I was so pleased for him watching him in tears after the Europa League final. Yeah. He hasn't had a great season at all, but he's put so much into that football club. Mm-hmm. He's a lovely, lovely lad. Okay, so that's my favourite football, nicest footballer. Managers, I'm going to go to Diro Sven-Göran Eriksson. I dealt with him when he was. You're laughing. You're laughing because we all know that at some point we'll do a Sven podcast. But today is not the day. When he was at Manchester City, which was when I dealt with him a little bit with England, but more at Manchester City. He was just I mean, the people at City will tell you that in recent. If I think to my years living in Manchester, if you go through Joe Royal and Kevin Keegan and Stuart Pearce, and then Sven, and then Mark Hughes, and then Mancini, and then Pellegrini, and then Guardiola. people at Manchester City who've worked there, because there are still some people who predate the Abu Dhabi money. People at City will tell you that Sven Jornausen, in terms of the rank and file staff, people who work on the reception, people who work in the canteen, Sven is just a genuinely charming, lovely. And you're laughing. You're laughing because you know all the rogue stories. You know all the rogue stories.
I feel so guilty about my legal letter from him.
And I know some of the rogue stories. Well, you talk. Okay, let's just say very, very briefly, because we will do this on another podcast. I promise you, people out there, because the stories are so many and so rich and so deep. But in terms of, you talk about legal letters, I'm assuming you're talking about your time on the Sun. The one thing that's, I know this for a fact from a guy who worked closely with him when he was at City, the one thing that Sven worried about more than anything else, which is slightly goes against the image of the kind of playboy that devil-may-care Lothario, he worried about being on the front pages of the English newspapers because he thought his parents would see it. He thought his parents
That's
would
probably
see
why I got the letter. And again, it's for another day. But I actually really liked him as well because he was very welcoming and, shall I say, laissez-faire about letting journalists around the squad at the time. Which actually, looking back on it, probably wasn't good. You know, when Rio's doing World Cup wind-ups and kidnapping Beckham in Moss Side and stuff like that. Probably not the best thing.
I don't think Sven. I think Sven underestimated the football culture around the England team back then. Anyway, lovely guy.
Okay, Mark, what about you?
One player, Vincent Kompany.
Ah, amazing.
Yeah, I loved Vincent as a player. Even if you're cautioned about, you sent him off. I remember sending him off in Israel. Playing for Belgium. Last few minutes, sent him off, and this was on the Wednesday night, I think it was, and then on the Sunday, I'm refereeing the Manchester derby, and potentially I could have sent him off again because he slipped into a challenge. I give him the benefit of the doubt. He went off injured at half time, anyways. But there was one time I remember coming out. It was at Man City, and you know, you never watched anything. You couldn't look at your mobile phone. You didn't have any TV in your dressing room, so you didn't know if you 100% if you've made a mistake or not, but you can get the vibes. The vibes were, I've made a mistake. And, you know, you had the people who work for lovely Sky would like to tell you that you've made a mistake also. So I've come out for the second half thinking, oh, my God, I've made another mistake. And Vincent Kompany came alongside and he said, Mark, he said, don't worry about that mistake. He said, the best people in the world try and not make that mistake a second time. And I thought, what a lovely guy. Probably that's why he didn't get cautioned in the second half. That's another.
There's a little bit of pressure put on you.
But but he was genuine. You had players off, but a lot of players used to put you under pressure, but you knew them players. Vincent wasn't. He never back chatting. Even when I finished, I was in China. I left the Premier League 2017, went to China after Saudi, 2019, 2020, and I took a phone call from his agent, and he said he would like you to referee his testimonial. And I thought, what a lovely touch. I couldn't because I was in China, but what a lovely, lovely touch. And, you know, it was great to see him do so well in management because he had that aura about him that he was such a, for me,
now
such
you
a
mention
nice guy.
that, I once interviewed Vincent at the offices of one of his sponsors in Wilmslow, and I was waiting there for him, and he turned up with a cup of Starbucks for himself and for me. Which again is
that's the touch, isn't it?
Doesn't sound like a big thing.
No, it makes
footballers don't do shit like that.
No,
they don't do shit like that.
But he was in it. You could tell he was a very articulate man, very educated person, and you might say he was trying things to try and. But I just felt that was in his nature. I always felt he had.
Interesting as well that City, Mancini, he was a control freak. I like Roberto, but he was a control freak, and did for him in the end. He was suspicious of Kompany. I think he felt threatened by him. He used to call him behind his back. He used to call him the professor, and it wasn't meant as a compliment. He felt a bit threatened by that intelligence. I think that kind of that emotional intelligence threatened Mancini a little bit. I think.
But I tell you what I used to love as a coach. I just missed that character. Was Big Sam Allardyce. I love Big Sam. When he used to come down, when he was at Bolton, you had Phil Brown. Phil Brown mustn't have been arguing with the fourth official enough, so Big Sam would come down just for. And I used to ask him, I said, why are you abusing the fourth official? Why are you abusing me when I was fourth official? And he'd go, just to get the crowd going.
Sam's a friend of mine, and but he did once threaten to kick my door down. When I first met Sam, and he was manager of Notts County. I was on a local newspaper, the Nottingham Evening Post, covering the club, and they took a player on trial. Who was coming back from a failed drugs test. Very rare back then, 20 odd years ago. And I rang Sam up and said, so you're taking this player, Sam, just going to check in, just going to write the story. And Sam said, "Oh yeah, write the story, but don't mention that he's coming back from the drugs ban." I'm like, "Sam, that's the only reason this story's interesting." I said, "The fact that you're signing Joe Blogs, it's not. We've got to mention he's coming back for drugs ban." He said, "You do that, and I'll come round and I'll kick your fucking door down."
Oof.
And I said, and I'd only just arrived at Nottingham at the time. I was living in a hotel. I said, "Well, you're not going to be able to do that, Sam, because I'm living in a hotel." He said, "I don't care." He said, "I'll come to that hotel and I'll kick down every fucking door until I find which is yours."
But he was such a great character. I remember there was one time that had a bar bill. I think they were playing Aston Villa. They were staying at St George's Park. And there was a bar bill. I think it was about £48,000, if I can recall correctly. It was a large sum of money. And I was refereeing. He was at West Ham at the time. And there was Neil McDonald, Big Sam. And I went to Neil next to Sam. I said, "My God," I says, "that bar bill was huge last week." He says, "Yeah," he says, "there's a big investigation within the club." I says, "What, somebody's going to get sacked?" He went, "No, and we're having a big meeting to find out who'd had the coffee on the bill."
Excellent story. I mean, again, to chip in here, there are so many. I feel very lucky to have met some grateful. Like Ali McCoy's a great example. Spent a lot of time trying to sign him as a columnist. He'd turn up 2.5 hours late. I'd be furious. He'd smile at you. You think, "Oh, fuck, he's got away with it again." Frank McAvenny, lovely, lovely people like that. Steve Parish has been great for me as a journalist, always on the end of a phone. I once told him in 2016 you should sign John McGinn, and he said, "Anybody can look good in Scotland." I like to remind him of that every time. He does pretty well. But the one for me, Darren Fletcher.
Yeah.
And I think it's important that he gets some credit for this, because in lockdown, I was having a really shite time, and Darren was so kind, and they did a thing, virtual penalties. So you'd film yourself taking 5 penalties into empty nets, then you'd film yourself saving 5 penalties, like left or right, down the middle, with a ball of socks or whatever. So kids in high-rise flats who didn't have a garden in the pandemic could stay occupied. And he got loads of professional footballers to do it. Got no thanks for it whatsoever. Just did it because he's a good man. And again, same as you, like we did a TV thing together, and he phoned me up and said, "Do you want something from the garage?" I thought he was joking. Sure enough, he turned up with a bag of Monster Munch, a can of Iron Brew, and a chocolate bar for me. And I thought, "You're a great man."
He's a good lad.
Great guy, Darren Fletcher. Love him. I
And
really
a good
love him.
footballer. He was a very good
Cracking
footballer.
I refereed one of my last matches. He played West Brom, and he was playing. And
Underrated.
I remember it was against Bournemouth, and I'd made a decision against West Brom. He was furious, and he ran over to see Tony Pulis in the technical area to see on the monitors if I'd got it right. And as I was dealing with the injured player, because I think I'd given offside, and the assistant hadn't given the offside, but I had because I'd seen the touch. And he came back and he went, "How did you get that one right?" And I went, "That's why I'm the best." He just laughed.
Right, so here we go on Whistleblowers, our first ever guest, and we're starting very strongly with one of the best actors in the country right now. He's outstanding. You'll be familiar with him from some great stuff, including The Gold. I know him from a short film he made with an amazing actress, Lena Headey. I think she directed that. It was BAFTA nominated. He's had an incredible career. A Town Called Malice. He's doing This City Is Ours. He's been in 1,000 Blows. He's another brilliant, brilliant actor to come out of Liverpool. James Nelson-Joyce. Welcome to the podcast, young man.
Hello, the boys.
Hello. James, let's start strong, right? Do you want to batter a referee early? This is your chance.
I don't necessarily want to batter him. It's a genuine question I've got. It's a genuine question.
Go for it.
Go on then.
So, Mark, I'm good mates with Jamie, yeah?
Yeah.
Give me a story about when he gave you an absolute roasting.
Right. What, we're talking about Jimmy Carragher, yeah?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, but see, Jimmy actually liked us because if you go back all of the derbies, it was at Everton. I refereed Everton, Liverpool, and I probably should have sent off Dirk Cowd for the challenge. And I missed the penalty that Jimmy Carragher pulled down. Was it Julian Lescott?
Yeah.
So he always used to like us from that moment on. That I actually missed the penalty in the derby. So he's always been on my.
Oh, has he?
list.
Because I've heard
Yeah.
stories that refs were like kind of terrified of Jamie and not necessarily Stevie.
Nah, Stevie was the one that. Nah, Jamie was always the one that put it about.
Yeah.
But Jamie was always, to me, after missing that penalty, he was always thinking, "Oh, Mark's all right," especially not giving a penalty at Goodison.
Okay, fair enough.
So you trying to tell us, Mark, that players were that easily bought then? You give them one good decision.
Yeah, one good
at the
decision.
start
I
of
could
the
have
career,
anything.
they love you forever.
I never refereed him for a while after.
All right then, Mark. Apart from Jamie, who was out of all the players in the Premier League, who was the one you go, "Oh, I've got to fucking ref him on Sunday or Saturday"?
Yeah, I've always said it. It was always Craig Bellamy. But I loved it, you see. I loved Craig when he played for Newcastle because that's my team. And I was thinking to myself, it wasn't because he was scoring goals for Newcastle. I was thinking, thank God I wasn't refereeing him that week because I couldn't referee Newcastle. But then when he left, I ended up having to referee him. And I remember one game, it was Bolton, Man City, and I sent him off for a second yellow for a dive. And when I watched it back, it wasn't a dive. It was actually a penalty. And a couple of weeks later, James, a couple of weeks later, I was refereeing Man City, and I met him in the tunnel, and he just grabbed me balls and squeezed them.
They don't make him like him anymore, do they?
No.
He's doing a good job for Wales.
Yeah, did very well.
Good job for Wales so far. Yeah, brilliant.
James, when you're playing in Soccer Aid this weekend, have you got any plans to intimidate the referee like that?
No, not the referee, just these little Love Island.
Who are you most looking forward to playing with at Soccer Aid, James?
Do you know what? I'm a mad footy head. Like, I'll watch any game. So, you know, obviously Wayne and Gary Neville and all that. But I remember Jack Wilshere in his heyday at Arsenal. That left foot was unbelievable. So he's, because you'd watch him because that team was unbelievable, wasn't it? I'm looking forward to playing with Wilshere really because you don't get many players like him, do you?
James, dare I say, you're in the twilight of your career now at 35 years old, right? What kind of shape are you in for Soccer Aid? Can you put a shift in this weekend?
Not a good one, let's put it that way. And he resembles Neville Southall more than anyone.
Neville Southall now, you mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. What position are you going to play?
I don't know yet because they were asking me these questions and I'm going, hang on, you've got Scholesy there, you've got Wayne Rooney, like, I'll fucking carry the water, do you know what I mean? I'm not bothered. Yeah. But, I mean, I usually play like either like full back or centre mid. That's where I enjoy playing.
Yeah. It's good because some lineup, though, isn't it? The players are fantastic. If there was one player that you could come up against and, either nutmeg or humiliate in any way, is there anybody? And I want you to say Martin Compston, basically. Right? That's what I'm looking for you to say.
No, I wouldn't say Martin. It'd be Vidic, and then I'd just hold the 6 up to him like that. I'd be like...
I mean, again, the players take it really seriously, don't they? The non-footballers, I think, particularly in the England team. But how seriously are you taking it? Have you trained for the game?
No. I'm taking it seriously because, I wanted to be a footballer growing up. So, to say you played at Old Trafford is cool and that, but come on, you're playing against professional footballers. Just get the ball and give it to them. Don't try and be... Go on.
I'll just tell you something. Just tell you one thing. So I'm a long way past my playing days now. A long way past my playing days. I have played at Old Trafford, and I played in a press game at Old Trafford about 20 years ago when I was your age. And I'll say one thing to you. It's fucking massive. It's massive.
We're talking about Old Trafford here.
And it's got a fucking hill in the middle of it. I think they call it a camber, yeah? If you're standing on one touchline, you can hardly see the other one.
But it's not the pitch as well. You're playing in front of, 76,000 people as well? And millions of people back watching it on TV. So I'll be watching that misplaced pat.
It's a big old gaff.
Thank God I'm not refereeing it anymore. I'm getting too old for it.
Do you know what they said to me? They was like, "Now you've got these players playing and all that, so we just want you to be a bit of legs." And I'm thinking, "Yeah, mate, I can barely walk. Never mind run at the minute." So I think they're in for a bit of a shock.
James, who's the best non-player that you've played with? The best actor?
I've got 2. So Jack McMullen, who plays Jamie in This City Is Ours, is unbelievable. He's unbelievable. But there's another lad who we play with called Nico Miralegro. He's an actor. Nico is unbelievable. This is the gospel truth. I think it was Owen Coyle. We played a charity game. I didn't play in it, but the lads did. And Owen Coyle said to him, I think it was when he was at Bolton or somewhere, said, "Why don't you come down for a trial? Like, I can't guarantee you in the first team, but I think you'd make it into the squad." And Nico was just like, "Nah, mate, you're all right. I'm happy." Yeah. And I'm like, Nico.
Brilliant actor as well.
Oh, Nico's boss. Good lad.
Yeah. He was in Spike Island. I don't know if you've seen that.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, he's fucking great in that, isn't he? He's great.
Yeah.
Right, we're going to talk a wee bit of football with you, James. You're a massive Liverpool fan, obviously. What do you think of the Trent Alexander-Arnold situation? Where do you stand on that debate?
it's a hard one. Like, the Scouser in me is like, how could you ever leave Liverpool? You know, we are a breed of our own. And, you know, you see the likes of Jamie and Stevie and everyone, and you go, even when you hear Robbie Fowler talking about Liverpool, and, you know, it's a religion up here. And it's bred into you. And I think the sad thing about it was the way it was played out more than anything. Look, I can understand you get one career, you get 10, 15 years max, Harry. You know, and he's been doing it since he was like 8, and he's been in the same city since. So I understand, you know, wanting to go and like play for Real Madrid and a new culture and, you know, new challenges. I get it. He's won everything with Liverpool. I understand it. I just think the way it was played out should have been handled a lot better. But I'll be honest, and I'll say this openly, the Liverpool fans booing at Anfield, that should never have happened. That's not what Liverpool do. We're not like that. And look, everyone's got their own view. We all buy our ticket and we've all got our own say. But my opinion of it is like, he's still in the red shirt and he's playing for Liverpool. And, you know, it's about the team winning first and foremost. That's why we're there. It's not the name on the back, it's the badge on the front. That's the most important.
Yeah, who could have handled it better? Where do you think he went wrong? Was it a Klopp issue? Was it a slot issue? Or was it a boards issue?
Truthfully, I think it was a mixture of all three. Like, Real Madrid, they're just little snakes, aren't they? Like, let's be honest, they're a ratty club. There's no class with that club whatsoever. And you know they've been tapping him up from time and getting in his ear and belling him in his ear and all that. And look, it's very hard to turn something like that down. But good luck to him, I say. But I think the way Real Madrid handled it, they were very, you know, snaky. I think Liverpool, how do you get your 3 best players into, like, you know, the last year of the contract? Salah, Van Dijk and Trent. It's a shock. And now we've got Kanate, who was arguably one of our best players last season, got a year left. Robbo's got a year left. I kind of can see that. I love Robbo. I think for us it's like an emotional thing with Robbo.
Don't say it. Please don't say it. Don't say it about Robbo.
We love him. We love him. But
he's got to go though, hasn't he?
I don't know, has he? Like, there's characters in that dressing room and they lead by example, and he's one of them. Like, I was at the players' party after the game, and the amount of respect he's got off the players is huge. And to have someone like that round there for the younger lads, I think would be brilliant. But and he still got it. But yeah, I think the club let themselves down a little bit. Them contracts getting there, and I don't think that'll happen again. But look, we're Liverpool. We won the league. We were brilliant this season. We're about to sign Wirtz, and we'll see what we do this season. It's exciting.
Go on, Ian.
No, I think, you know, I know Gordon doesn't want me to say it. I think Andy Robertson probably is over the other side of that hill now, and I think you probably do need a left back. But going back to what you were saying about Trent, I was at the game against Arsenal when he got booed.
Yeah,
and I was absolutely staggered by it. I did not think that would happen at all. But I was also then at the game when they got the trophy against Palace, and I went to that game full of dread about what was going to happen. I thought, how can a Liverpool player, a Scouser, get booed when he gets a medal put around his neck? And I thought it was fabulous that it didn't happen that day.
But you know,
put it to one side.
Do you know what the change in that was? It was Klopp's speech.
Do you think it was Klopp's speech?
1,000,000%. He's a god in Liverpool. He's a god. Yeah. And if he tells us...
he said, don't do it.
Yeah. 1,000,000%.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Really
what will your emotions be when by the time this podcast goes out, you'll have seen Trent doing his keepy uppies at the Bernabeu. Yeah. It's a weird moment, that. How will it make you feel, do you think?
Yeah. Look, torn, because good luck to the lad. He's a Scouser going to play for Real Madrid. Like, you know, these are things kids dream of. Good luck to him. He's got the best right foot in the world. I hope he goes and smashes it. I really do. Like, you get one career, go and do what's right for you, because imagine coming out of your career with that little bit of regret, going, oh, what if I done this? What if I done that? And he could go to Real Madrid, and he probably will, and go, shouldn't have left Liverpool. I genuinely think he will think that. But good luck to him. Like, he's a young lad. Go smash it. Go win everything with them apart from the Champions League.
James, see, just looking at the way your career's been going in the last few years, it's been a remarkable run, right? And working at the moment as an actor is tough. It's a really tough time in your game. But the one thing that always jumps out to me is you must have missed some brilliant games because you were in some car park somewhere filming on a night shoot. What's the game you missed that you wish you'd been at?
The Barcelona one at Anfield.
Yeah.
Divock game, yeah. The Trent corner taken quickly, and it was my birthday as well, the 7th of May. I was working on my birthday, and then I was just like, but more elated that, we went through than anything.
How far are you pushing it now when it comes to the schedule, where you can see Champions League dates and ties and flights being arranged? Are you trying your best to use a bit of influence there?
The last 3 years, it's been shocking. Like, I've worked non-stop. But we start again on This City Is Ours, later this year. So it's one of them ones, you get the schedule like probably a month before filming at the earliest. So to be honest, once I'm into a gig, I throw myself all into it, and I just turn my phone off then and try not to find out the results and try and watch it somehow.
I used to love that with Martin. I mean, he was on set doing Line of Duty when the famous penalty was saved to get us into the Euros. But do you ever have a situation where there's a mobile phone somewhere on set that you're quietly watching Liverpool in the background?
I have been known to do that, yeah. I have been known to do it. I'll tell you a funny story. I was doing a play once about, must have been 10 years ago at the Royal Court, and there was this amazing actor called Jake Abraham. He's no longer with us. And Liverpool were playing United. We were all sat there. By the way, Jake was an Evertonian. But there was me, Bungie, Drew Schofield, and we were watching it, and it was the interval. It was like a Saturday matinee. We were playing United. And we were watching it. And the buzzer goes, and we goes, fuck it, give it another 5 minutes, please. Like that. I just made them wait another 5 minutes. But you get it in where you can.
James, did you ever worry that, as a Scouse actor, that when you get cast in a Jimmy McGovern piece with Stevie Graham and Sean Bean, that might be the pinnacle of your career? Because, getting better than that's tough, isn't it? It's an amazing thing to do. Did that ever cross your mind?
It's not that I worry. I'm kind of more grateful for it more than anything. Because I've been doing this for 15 years now, professionally. And, all those, like, going to auditions, on your lunch break and doing all that kind of stuff. And then, finishing Little Boy Blue, and then you're in Argos the next day, where, all those, I've done all those things. So when I was doing time, I was just, thanking me lucky stars, not really going, oh, this is the pinnacle. I was just like, how lucky am I? Jimmy McGovern, Lewis Arnold, Stephen Graham, Sean Bean, also working alongside Jack McMullen again, who's my best mate. Like, I'm a very lucky lad. So I was never, is this the best it's going to get? I was just enjoying it while I was there.
It's class, man. It's brilliant to see your name linked to big roles, and I know it's a cliche in interviews, so you must get it every single time now, but as a good representation, we've got a Geordie, a Northerner and a Scotsman here. We've got a Scouser as well. How good would it be to be the first Scouse Bond?
Well, I don't know about that, but it would be great. Look, I'm not one of these cool actors who go, oh, like, I don't know, it's all that kind of shit. Look, you want to play James Bond, anyone does, and I'd love to do it, but there's a lot more that comes to doing it than just, what you see. They say the James Bond thing is like that next level, isn't it? So,
could you do it with a little Merseyside twang to the famous lines as well, do you think?
And that's what I would do, yeah.
Yes!
That's what I would do.
That's the correct answer.
You're not going to fake it, though.
No.
Could you... I'm trying to think, would you give us one of those lines with a Scouse influence? What do you reckon?
What's
the
line
one that
then?
you would like to deliver?
What, shaken, not stirred? Is that what you want?
That's it, yeah. Miss Moneypenny, something like that. Yeah. Right, Miss Moneypenny.
What's happening, Gail? Come here, you.
The name's Boss. James Boss.
You'd imagine. Fucking hell, Barbara Broccoli will be fucking going to get him off the book.
James, thank you so much for your time. Before we let you go, we're very lucky we've got a generous sponsor who's prepared to make a substantial donation to UNICEF when you play at Soccer Aid. If you'd be so kind to celebrate by giving a little blow of a whistle for a podcast into the camera, if that happens, would you do that?
Yeah, of course.
Yes!
If I score, all I've got to do is blow the whistle.
Just blow the whistle, we'll make a donation to UNICEF for you.
No problem.
And if you can find a way of doing it, even if you don't score, then we're all right.
We'll give you some dough as well.
Just find a way.
Yeah, I'll find a way. Don't worry.
Thank
I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll take the fucking whistle off the ref and blow it right in the camera.
Give it a Jamie Vardy. Give it a Jamie Vardy. Yeah.
James Nelson-Joyce, one of the best of your generation. It's brilliant to have you on. Can't believe you're our first guest. What a strong start. It's only downhill from here. Check him out in the goal, the town called Malice. This city is ours, 1,000 blows. So many great things coming out, and watch him in Soccer Aid this weekend. James Nelson-Joyce, thank you, brother.
So, boys, thank you.
Top man, brilliant. Cheers for that. Amazing.
Take care.
Class.
Thank you, mate. Brilliant.
Good luck.
Sorry for the language as well.
No.
It's worse, don't we?
Enjoy the after party. Always good. Soccer Aid, always good.
Yes, enjoy Compston, full Compston. Try and keep out of jail.
Yeah, I will. Don't you worry about that.
See you, mate.
Take care, boys. Ta-ra.
Ta-ra, mate. Bye. Right, that's it for the latest episode of Whistleblowers. Thank you so much for listening. As always, please get in touch with us on socials. Instagram, Whistleblowers Pod. TikTok, Frolics. Let's do it again. On Instagram, Whistleblowers Pod. On TikTok, Whistleblowers Podcast. And on X, it's Blowers Pod. So please do get in touch with us with your questions for Mark Clattenburg and Ian Ladyman. We're back on Tuesday for the next instalment of Whistleblowers. Until then, please give us a follow, get in touch, subscribe, and give us a review. One more thing. Mark, can you blow the full-time whistle? He's practiced since last week. Did you see that? Very good. Yeah. We'll see you next time. If you want to watch more episodes of Whistleblowers, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. We'll keep you up to date all the way through the summer with everything that's happening in the world of football.